Well, welcome to Christ and Culture. This is Pastor Jeff Short, your Bible teacher and cultural commentator. Today we are going to analyze the latest rendition of Joni Mitchell and her song, Both Sides Now. And it's interesting because if you recall this song, Both Sides Now, this was written in the 1960s. This was written during the sexual revolution. This was written in the tumultuous 60s. The Vietnam War was going on. Rock music was picking up speed, and there was a lot going on in society. And Joni Mitchell was right in the middle of it with her singing and her songs. So I remember hearing this song in the 70s and in the 80s. Really don't remember much in the 60s. Because I'm a small kid during those times. But Joni Mitchell recorded Both Sides Now, and the original version was very up-tempo, I think, and it was kind of light, and it had sort of a positive, more optimistic spin on it, and it was a good song. I think everyone liked it that heard it, but she is now 50 years, 60 years removed from those days, and she is now in her 80s, and she's come out with another version of Both Sides Now. And it's a slower, it's a sadder, it's a more, I would say, pessimistic sound. And I really see this sort of as a symbol of the children of the 60s, the children of this so-called sexual revolution that happened. You had the Woodstock generation, the Haight-Ashbury, the Flower Children, and Flower Power, and that whole 60s scene. There was a lot of optimism in thinking, hey, we're doing something new. We're doing something great. We're going to throw off the old, formal, traditional Christian morality. We're going to move into communes, free love, the Beatles, Joni Mitchell, the rock scene, drugs, experimentation, getting high, and just casting off of all moral restraints, all moral boundaries, and just a frenzy of experimentation. Well, Joni Mitchell was right in the midst of that. But we're going to see where that goes to in the later years. So here, let's play a little bit of Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now, and let's see if we can pick up on some of that disappointment, that sort of discouragement that has brought about children of the 60s as they look back over their life and they see the results of all of this experimentation with drugs, experimentation with sex, breaking all the biblical rules and doing what they felt like doing, do what you feel, and do whatever. And this is her latest song, and it's a little bit sad. Let's hear it.
Rose and flows of angel hair, and ice cream castles in the air, and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way.
Okay, so you can already pick up the way this is being portrayed and the way the music is being written and the way the score, the orchestral score is taking place. There's a lot of violin. It's really sort of a somber mood that she's casting on this, and that's very strange because the original was more up-tempo and peppy and light, sort of pop music. And, of course, she was singing it, I don't know, an octave or two higher. She also used to have a very high voice and sort of a cheery voice, and so now it's very low-voiced, Joni Mitchell, and you kind of sense a weariness in her voice, a tiredness that her and her friends of the 60s are weary and they've been beat up by the path that they pursued. And so you'll hear more of that as the song goes along.
But now they only block the sun, and they rain and they snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, but clouds got in my way.
Okay, I'll stop there right there again, and we'll do a little commentary. Now, it seems like she's trying to say through this song, she's trying to say that she's looked at light or looked at clouds from both sides. I think the backstory of the song is when she was flying in an airplane, she was above the clouds, so she saw one perspective of clouds, and then when she landed and got back down to earth, she would see another perspective of clouds. And so she seems to be saying here that there are two ways of looking at things. One above them, the clouds, and they look fluffy and light and really beautiful. And you get down below them and they can rain on you and snow on you. And there can be all kinds of things that come up that are not pleasant. But from one way of looking at it, clouds are nice and beautiful. And then another way of looking at clouds, they're not very beautiful and can cause problems. So looking at both sides. Now, that kind of reminds me, this whole song, actually, the newer version, the latest version, the 80-year-old Joni Mitchell version, is sort of from a book of Ecclesiastes, where Solomon is actually contemplating life, and he's looking and he's trying to figure out life and the meaning and purpose of life. And he's saying, well, you can go this approach and do this, or you can do this approach and do this. I think, again, the children of the 60s, the sexual revolution, they were looking and searching for meaning and purpose in life, fulfillment in life. But the problem was they decided that all of the answers that had come down from the past, namely the Judeo-Christian heritage and the Bible and Christianity and the gospel, they looked at that and said, nope, that's not the answer. We have to try something else. So they started all of this radical experimentation with drugs and sex and anything they wanted to do. And it was kind of a liberating feeling for them, but they had to go through all of that. And in the process, it just wore them down. And many of them didn't make it, especially in the rock scene. If you look at all of the rock stars that died of either drug overdose, alcohol poisoning, tragic deaths of this sort or another, their whole search, there's a lot of bodies all over the road. The carnage is great because of this radical experimentation idea. So I think we hear that in Joni Mitchell's song, not so much the first version, but this second version, you hear the weariness in her life, and she's speaking out of experience, the weariness of trying to find fulfillment and meaning and purpose outside of Jesus Christ and a relationship with God. And she's reflecting back like 60 years later and kind of pouring that into this song that she wrote when she was, I think, in her 20s. So let's continue to listen.
I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's cloud illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all.
So she's saying she really doesn't know clouds at all. She's looked at them from this angle and that angle, and from in and out and up and down. She doesn't know what clouds are. still after all those searching. And I think that's a lot of what the feeling is of these children of the 60s. If they don't find Jesus Christ, if they don't come to the source of all truth and knowledge and reality, if they don't convert and repent of their sins and confess their sins and admit that their search was motivated a lot of times by just the selfish and sinful rebellion in the human heart that we all have naturally from Adam and Eve, and they've pursued it and rejected Christ and rejected the Bible, rejected church, rejected God, and they went off into drugs. They went off into all of these sex and orgies and sexual perversions and greed and materialism. Now, it's really weird that a lot of the children of the 60s who were protesting against the materialistic age that they perceived was really dominant and stifling. It's amazing that a lot of them then go on and become businessmen and materialistic, and they're all about the money. And it's ironic that they flip that much. But again, that is just another part of the search that they're on. And this is just another aspect of their rebellion against God. They're searching for meaning and purpose outside of God. They cannot find it. And so they keep searching in different ways and in different things. And they're never going to find happiness and meaning in life or purpose or forgiveness outside of Christ. So we see Joni Mitchell singing the first part of her song. Let's go back to it now and see what else she has to say.
Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way that you feel as every fairy tale comes real. I looked at love that way.
Okay, so now that part is talking about she moved on from clouds, and now her topic is love, and she's going to talk about love. And I think this part also betrays sort of a disappointment and a discouragement in her quest for love. I know that she, at a very young age, got pregnant and had a child, and then the father left them, and she had to agonize and figure out what to do. She put the child up for adoption. And then shortly after that, she got married to, I think, someone in the music industry, and then that ended in divorce. So her life has been really difficult, again, because of her search outside of Christ and her search for meaning and purpose and fulfillment and reaching out there in the world to try to find what can only be found in God. And so she is reflecting on that, and now she's talking about love. And this is really sad because I think there's a lot of disappointment in her voice.
Oh, but now it's just another show, and you leave them laughing when you go. And if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away.
Okay, so she's trying to deal with the fact that her life has not found love. Maybe it's been, one relationship after another, one failed, broken relationship after another, one-night stands, many sexual encounters. I mean, this is all typical 60s stuff. So if you look at almost everyone in the music industry during the 60s and 70s and 80s, well, it's still that way in the rock industry and the hip-hop and rap and the Grammys. You look at the people that you see in the Grammys, and you're going to find people who have been in and out of relationships, cheated upon, cheated other people, just the most chaotic mess that you can imagine. Marriages, divorces, marriages again, divorces, multiple marriages, multiple divorces, living with people then breaking up, getting together with other people, breaking. It's just a chaotic mess. And you're looking at a woman that her voice seems to say, wow, I'm tired of all of this. And there's a weariness there. So again, that's how I'm reading this. Maybe you see something different, but that seems to be the case in this musical rendition of Both Sides Now that Joni Mitchell is singing many decades later, 50, 60 years later from her original.
Illusions that I recall. I really don't know love. I really don't know love at all.
Okay, so she goes on, and this is her conclusion about love. She doesn't really know love at all. Again, after all these years, and she seems to be saying, I really don't know love at all. Now, the original, it seems to be more optimistic and more positive because you're talking about a young woman singing it, and it's very easy to imagine where like a 23-year-old young woman or teenage woman or young woman in her 20s, when she's saying, I can't figure out love. I don't know what love is at all. And you can just sort of understand that, okay, but she's got her whole life ahead of her, and she'll learn about love, and she will find love, and that she will be fulfilled, and that she will find happiness, she will find joy. And we know as a Christian that for the vast, vast, vast majority of people, you're going to find love in a faithful, monogamous marriage, a man and a woman marriage. No such thing as a gay marriage. There's no such thing as a same-sex marriage. Two men, two women cannot form a marriage. Impossible. Contradiction. Because God didn't institute that. So we know as Christians that if she could have found someone to live with in a faithfully Christian marriage, preferably, then she would have found the fulfillment she was looking for. She could have had a family and raised children, and there would have been the blessings of God upon that. But instead, a lot of the children of the 60s went off on their own. They rebelled against God. They said, we don't have to follow his rules. We don't have to live by God's will. And they experimented with every single configuration you can imagine. And it has brought sadness and disillusionment. And I think the song here reflects at the end of her life, the 80s. She's still alive, but she's well into her 80s now. And so this is sort of a sad, sad reflection on her life.
Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds, I've looked at life that way. Oh, but now old friends, they're acting strange, and they shake their heads and they tell me that I've changed.
Now, it's interesting right here, a lot of the actual rock musicians have commented on this song, and even the children of the 60s, these rock children musicians, and for example, I think it was Jimmy Page in Led Zeppelin, the lead guitarist, said that he felt that this line, this lyric meant that when you become famous, people look at you differently, treat you differently, and he could relate to this song. So there are tons and tons of people who grew up in the 60s and were children of the 60s and 70s that can relate to different lyrics of this song. So this song is a very profound song, but the way she's singing it today, I think will really resonate with a lot of the baby boomer generation and the people who came during and after the sexual revolution, because it's like the book of Ecclesiastes, vanity of vanity, all life is vanity. And if you get into that secular, immoral, ungodly, rebellious lifestyle and mindset, you're going to end up at the end of your life very depressed and very sad and very disillusionment and cynical. And we get a lot of cynicism today with a lot of the baby boomers, but also even the Generation X and even now Gen Z. They're becoming very disillusioned. Well, if you're outside of the will of God, if you're trying to follow paths other than the ones God has laid out, you're going to end up in despair and disillusionment.
Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living every day.
A little bit of optimism there. She's still trying to hang on to some kind of a hope. She's still, it seems like, even having gone through a lot of what she's had to go through in life, she's trying to look for the bright side or look for that glimmer of hope, light at the end of the tunnel. And we know, as Christians, the only hope and the only light of the world is Jesus Christ. So hopefully her and others of her generation and everyone who is searching outside of God's will be able to eventually find Christ, find their way to God through Jesus Christ and the gospel. And that's why we have to bring this message to the world. And we can't compromise the message. We can't blend in with the world in order to impress the world, or we can't soften our message about truth in order to be liked by the world. We cannot compromise any part of it. We need to hold and maintain the truth just for the sake of people who are lost and dying and are in darkness so that they can find the light. Okay, she keeps saying that she really doesn't know life. After all these years, she's in her 80s. And if you don't know what life's about when you're in your 80s, that means you have been searching in vain. And Jesus, I just recall the words of Scripture, taste and see that the Lord is good. And he also talks about if you drink from the water that I give, you'll never be thirsty again. And we just have to pray and talk and speak to this generation to let them know that there is hope, there is purpose. You can find out what the meaning of life is. You just have to turn to Jesus. He's the only answer.
I really don't know life. I really don't know life at all.
So that is the sad song. And it almost reminds me a little bit about Peggy Lee's song, Is That All There Is? So here again, a woman, a famous singer, who is trying to figure out life. And in Peggy Lee's song, and I did a video on that years ago, Is That All There Is? And she brings up scenes in her life, and she saw this, went to the circus with her father and saw all that fun thing, and then she asked, is this all there is to life? And it sounds like Joni Mitchell has turned a kind of a optimistic, peppy 60s catchy song into really a very existential, despairing song. Now, there was a little hope in there. If you look at some of the lyrics and some of the lines in the song, it does indicate that she's still holding out hope that she can find out what the meaning and purpose of life is and find out what life is all about. But still, the overall tone of this song is very sad and sort of pessimistic and grave and negative, actually, kind of depressing, very kind of an emotional statement on her part. Now, I guess it was her that made the decision to set the music part of this song in that sort of sad mood, because this totally changes the tone of the song. If you care to, go and listen to the original Both Sides Now. Now, it's been sung by all kinds of artists. Judy Collins, I think, was the first singer in the 60s to popularize this song, even though Joni Mitchell wrote it. But then Joni Mitchell sang it all over the place in the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000. I mean, she's been singing it for 60 years on stage. I think she sang it. I think she sang it on at Woodstock. I think she was there. But nevertheless, this latest rendition of this song is certainly almost like tear-jerking. It's just so, I don't know, personal for her. It's almost like she's singing it of her own life as a summary. And the way she's singing it is just as important as the lyrics that are contained in it. So check out the whole song if you want to listen to it without my commentary on the internet, and then see if you don't agree with me that this sounds like a weary child of the 60s reflecting back on her life and her disappointments and the sort of, I don't know, somewhat cynicism, somewhat skepticism of ever finding what she's looking for and the hope and the meaning in the world. And just again, I think of the invitation of Jesus to come unto him, all those who are weary and heavy laden, and I will give you rest. I hope and pray that Joni Mitchell will eventually come to the point in her life where she takes Jesus up on his invitation and surrenders her life to her life to him, and that she repents of all of her sins and all of the rebellion as part of that 60s generation, and then puts her full faith and confidence in Jesus Christ. I hope that happens before the end of her life. So I hope this has been an interesting analysis of Joni Mitchell's Both Sides Now, and we'll see you back next week. God bless.